Hi guys, my name is Emily. I will be summarizing chapter 5 of Sidman that's called On Becoming Shock. Sidman starts talking about punishment and the side effects of punishment. And he talks about some history, talking about the ancient code of Hammurabi or Hammurabi. And this is the old saying, an eye for an eye. And this referred to physicians. And essentially what it was a physician who treated a patient if they were unable to cure them, or if they, instead of curing them, caused discomfort for them, such as losing an eye or losing a leg, the physician would then have to remove their own leg or their own eye. So that's where the saying an eye for an eye came from. However, this led to many people avoiding the field of medicine due to these extreme circumstances. And it also led to doctors avoiding patients because no doctor was willing to care for someone with such an extreme disease or sickness that they were then going to have to punish themselves as a side effect of not being able to cure them. All this really did was to teach doctors to be afraid of their patients and to not help everyone. The whole point was to teach doctors how to better practice. However, when people come with incurable diseases and sicknesses, there's really nothing the doctors could do back then, or even some days today. Therefore, the eye for an eye mechanism, or the ancient code for Hammurabi, was really ineffective and did not do anything except punish the doctors. Sidman also used the example of a nuclear explosion. Usually these are used for a country to establish dominance over another country or to prove themselves as greater than another country. However, that minute or 2 minutes, 10 minutes, however long it takes, is that worth the immediate and long-term risks of the effects of radio fallout that's going to affect everyone? So yes, a country asserted dominance over another country, but how many people is this punishing, and how many people are going to become sick and ill due to the side effects of this nuclear explosion? And I really liked how Sidman gave examples of side effects of drugs that have been used in the past. For example, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but the drug that was prescribed to cure or assist with morning sickness in pregnant women that actually ended up, unfortunately, causing babies to be born without limbs or not developed limbs, even if the mother stopped taking the drug in the first trimester. It still had these extreme side effects on the baby. Another example he used was morphine, and I really liked the wording he used, how morphine is great when you're in a ton of pain. However, it's not great for those people who then become, and he used the word, enslaved to it, which I found extremely powerful. And especially in today's day and age with substance abuse, I found it extremely powerful. And this led him to the point that punishment, like some drugs, has been introduced into society without fully testing it and the effects that it's going to have on humans or just anyone in general. So then Sidman went into how new punishers are made. So this kind of applied to me as a teacher. So we assume people will have expected reactions to punishment. And when they don't, we're absolutely shocked that when you yell at them, when you talk to them, when you take something away from them, and they don't have that natural reaction of getting their behavior in line and no longer having those problem behaviors, we as teachers and as behaviorists are absolutely shocked, and we kind of create a stigma around that person as they're a crazy person, they're abnormal, why are they not reacting to these consequences that I'm giving them over and over and over again? But how clear are we with expected behaviors is really the question that needs to be thought about, because we punish someone who harms themselves, whether it's cutting themselves, whether it's stabbing themselves. So we punish those people, or we find that as problem behavior. However, in society, when someone is, once again, stabbing themselves, however, this time it's insulin because they have diabetes, we immediately give them sympathy and we're empathetic towards them and their situation. Once again, obviously, the behaviors are for different reasons, but stabbing oneself is defined, and you have to think about people think differently. So people who are confused why you're being sympathetic towards someone who is doing the same behavior, who doesn't see that big picture. So we need to make sure that those behaviors are defined. Same thing with the letter F. It's a series of lines on a paper that are connected. However, it is so punishing to some students every day, and the letter F is considered a conditioned punisher. Also, the letter A is a conditioned reinforcer. If you get an A, once again, it's a series of lines on your paper. However, it's a reinforcer, where an F, same series of lines, just in a different order and a different shape, is a conditioned punisher. So the chances of punishment contribute to the level of aggression. For example, punishers and reinforcement depend on the social and physical environment. So an example that I thought of, like I said earlier, I'm a teacher, so sometimes teachers kind of don't do the lesson, teach the lesson to their fullest ability, don't teach the lesson the way they normally would if someone was in the room watching, kind of just don't really give it their all. So a teacher not teaching to the best of their ability because she or he is not being observed, there's no availability of a reinforcer there. So they're kind of not teaching to their fullest potential. However, when they are being observed and they are teaching that lesson precisely, they have all the materials ready and prepared, and they know what's coming next. They're clearly ready for the next lesson, and they can see the sequence of events. There is a chance of punishment when they're being observed. If they're not doing a good job, then they could lose their job. They could get poor scores, which could affect their salary. So there's a chance of punishment, and this leads to more effort. So there is definitely sensitivity to our environment control and our use of environmental cues of reinforcers and punishment. And that's exactly why we're still around today. If we weren't sensitive to our environment, we would not be able to adapt. So, for example, we don't stick our fingers in sockets. We don't wear fleece sweatpants and sweatshirts to the beach in the summertime because we know we'll sweat. So we are sensitive to our environment and our environmental cues, and this is why we have adapted to be the species we are today. Another interesting topic that Sidman brought up was the concept of money. So money actually has no inherent value. It is paper, it is coins. However, it is essentially a universal reinforcer. It reinforces acts that produce them. So you get a paycheck that reinforces the work that you have done, which leads you to buy other reinforcers. A teenager babysits, she makes $15 an hour, she gets $60 after 4 hours. That's babysitting is then reinforcing to her because she can then go out to dinner with her friends the next night and she doesn't have to ask her parents for money. Then this brings to the question of, does taking away positive reinforcement instead of presenting negative reinforcement create the same reaction as punishment? And Sidman answers this by giving an example that few of us would be happy about getting fired, and being fired would be considered punishment. Therefore, we wouldn't continue doing acts that produce warnings about potentially being fired. We then move into the significance of conditioned punishment, and essentially punishment becomes punishment. And when I say that, I mean that the act of punishing and all of the behaviors and that what punishing looks like becomes the punishment. So Sidman gave the example of slapping a child. Slapping a child is the actual punishment. However, just the simple raise of your hand can also stop those behaviors. So if everything is punishing in an environment, then we essentially live our lives less by being less satisfied, and this leads to doing the bare minimum. We're learning what we need to avoid. We're destroying what's in our way. We're doing everything we can to not be punished. And this leads to kids, as you can imagine, hating school. If kids are walking through the door and they are being told to stop talking, keep your hands to yourself, put your pencil down. Nope, we don't do that here. If they're being told over and over again, their behavior is being corrected and they're being punished with whether it's a conditioned punisher like an F or a verbal punisher like being called out in front of the entire class, this leads to them not enjoying their time at school, which then leads to our point that entire environments can be reinforcing or can be punishing. So like I said before, if a kid is receiving Fs, if he's being verbally reprimanded, even physically reprimanded in school, then that environment becomes punishing for him or her. However, if a kid loves school because they are, well, wait, that's probably explanatory fiction. If the environment of school is reinforcing to a student, it might be because they're receiving A's, they're understanding the material, their teachers are treating them with respect, their teachers are treating them well, then the environment becomes reinforcing to them. Therefore, conditional punishment is absolutely a toxic side effect of punishment. So we really want to stay away from that. And once again, people who use punishment become punishers. So I just want to leave you with my question of, is there a situation that you have been in where you have noticed that you have used punishment and therefore become the punisher, or a situation where you have used reinforcement and therefore you have become the reinforcer? Thanks.